At the beginning of May, the good people in my hometown of Glastonbury go a bit bonkers. They deck themselves out in green and flowers, parade through the streets banging drums, and gather around a maypole. They are celebrating the pagan festival of Beltane, with its essence of spring, of fertility and growth. Much of the ancient symbolism dates back to times when these people were actually growing their own food rather than buying it in Lidl. Their forebears wanted to ward off evil spirits that might blight crops or affect cattle. Above all, this was a party to celebrate grass, which right now is literally growing beneath our feet. Beltane on my smallholding is an explosion, buds bursting, the incredible, wonderful stirring of the land as it wakes. This is almost my favourite place on the farm, this little lane. John and Ed planted these hedges 15 years ago now. Wow. I know. And at this time of year, it's just so, stunningly beautiful. It's that thing, isn't it, that they say in the West Country, ne'er cast a clout till May is out. And they're talking about May, the May blossom of the hawthorn. The reason why I love it is because we've got such a problem losing so many insects in Britain at the moment. And in these great big hedges, overgrown hedges, I suppose most people would think, it's a wonderful habitat for insects. And the whole place is like alive with insects. There's a saying in farming that you have to live like you're going to die tomorrow and farm like you're going to live forever. And so people don't bother to plant things. It'll look wonderful in 15 years' time. Who's going to go and plant something that's going to look great in 15 years' time? But if you do, this is what happens, and you've got a beautiful, beautiful place and a stunning habitat. Greetings, spring this year has been hard. We got the cows out, but then they had to come back in, as this has been the coldest, wettest spring I can recall in 10 years. Ploughing for my cereals was late and slow, and I had a rush to get the wheat sown. It's called Mulika. It's the only viable spring-sown bread wheat that grows in Britain, really. And that's kind of available. It's there are lots of bread wheats which are autumn sown, but this is the only spring sown viable, reliable bread wheat. The big difference between bread wheat, biscuit wheat, feed wheat, all sorts of different types. And in layman's terms, it depends on how high the protein content is. And this is very, very high protein content wheat, up over 13%. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pour it into buckets. I think probably about 3 or 4 buckets. And then I'm going to divide this up into 3 or 4 sections. And then I've got a fighting chance of getting it evenly spread. So I'm copying out a little tiny bit. There's an old saying with the number of seeds you have to sow. 1 for the rook, 1 for the crow, 1 to rot and 1 to grow. Got 2 things that are different this year. One, as you can see, I've got a clear patch of green grass all the way around, clear patch of green grass all the way around. So I'm going to have a 3-line 9,000 volt electric fence around this wheat to stop the badgers from rolling on it, number one. Number two, I've got it out in the open here in the middle of one of Brenda's fields so that a combine harvester can drive up the track and just harvest the whole thing all in one go, rather than having the boys having to pick it one ear at a time. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to be combining it, and it will be with a big combine. So it will be able to hoover up the whole lot all in one go, and it should take about 15 seconds to just go zzz, which is very exciting. I'm really looking forward to it.
When can we expect the wheat to be ready?
So I think end of August, beginning of September, it should be all right. So, yeah, early September, it should be okay. I've given him my hat. So I've been having difficulty with hens going broody, and it's how it naturally occurs, you know, in the summertime. But they're going broody early, and they're jamming up all the nest boxes in the hen house. And I don't want to have loads more chickens. I don't want them sitting on eggs. So what I've done, I've got hold of some pheasant eggs, which I put these 3 hens out here to sit on. Unfortunately, 2 of them have gone rebel and are now refusing to sit on my pheasant eggs. This one in here is sitting on about 20 pheasant eggs. And their pheasant eggs are great because pheasants can fly after 2 weeks. She hatches them out, and then after about a week, the pheasants will just all disappear into the hedgerows, and that'll be that. I reckon I'm 3 or 4 weeks away from peas, which is going to be very exciting. Not quite peas in April, but not far off for peas. Those are broad beans in flower. And so I'm not that long from broad beans. A month, 6 weeks away from broad beans, which is 6 weeks actually, say, from broad beans, which would be great. And these are new potatoes, and they're doing really well. Probably 6 weeks away. I think my hardest hungry gap period is going to be the first 2 weeks in June, because these potatoes I don't think are going to be properly ready until well into June, and I will have run out definitely of wheat by then. So I think my hard hungry gap is going to be early June. These are planted this mustard. This is what all my salad leaves are. It's mustard greens. It's just gorgeous. So nice. Peppery and just really nice. And edible flowers. Gorgeous. I've got some very beautiful French beans to go in, which will be quick. I've got a new melon, because my melons were great last year. I've got some sweet peppers. Got loads of chilies, but I've got some sweet peppers. For all of those things, you really need to know definitely that you're not going to get any frosts. And you also need it to be warm. So that will basically fill up the this part of the polytunnel. And then I need to clear up down the bottom, and that's where all my tomatoes are going, and my chilies, which are all now ready to go in. Oh, so in here are mustard greens, some other peppery salad leaves which I've grown, like red mizuna and other sort of salady leaves, eggs, soft cheese, chives. Those are purple as chive flowers. I sort of probably make one of those a day probably, and kind of munch through it. I'm making lots and lots of soft cheese, which is really nice, sort of chèvre type soft fresh cheese. And I have that with lots of things. You can start eating them the same day you made them. So my bread, I'm down to the kind of dregs. I'm really heavily rationing my bread. But I have made it last longer than I thought I was going to, that's for sure, yeah. I'm eating lots of meat. I roasted yesterday, some of my brisket, which is actually really, really fatty, and so no one else wants to eat it really. And so I cook a lump of that every sort of 10 days or 2 weeks. That's from the rib cage in the forequarter. I've got oceans of milk, which is just so gluggable and everything. Wine, obviously, got plenty of wine. Yeah, so the harvest that when we were all here for October, that's now all bottled and everything. Giving plenty of it away to pay people back for brilliant things they've done helping me and everything, which is really nice to do. This is, right in front of me, a very well-balanced diet. Carbohydrates, proteins, vitamins, minerals, really good for you. There's quite a lot of protein here, I'd say. But I think it's a balance. So the only thing I think I'm missing, probably, is something with lots and lots of vitamin C in, which I haven't had all the way through this project. But yeah, some tomatoes or something with a good dose of vitamin C in would be really good. But other than that, Do you know what? I think I'm actually quite fortunate. You know, we've been talking about this for months and months and months. This is May. This is the middle of the Hunger Gap, and I'm feeling really fortunate. I've got so much food.